You guys ready for round two? Like I said last night, I really like teaching the Calvary Chapels. I can wear blue jeans, and guess what? They said I could actually sit down this session. You ready for some freak out? Sometimes I just get wrapped up in the teaching, and we need to remember that people are going to go through these things. Probably people we know and love in our sphere of influence right now. It'd be nice to say everyone we love and know and our neighbors and our friends are saved, but that's just not the case. So we're going to look into the second half of tribulation, commonly called the Great Tribulation. And of course, what do? I play the trailer so you can get to set the stage for what I'm going to talk about. I guess a little volume. It's midway through the 7-year tribulation period, and the Jews have reinstated their ancient Mosaic law and are performing animal sacrifices in their rebuilt Third Temple. Worldwide, an overflowing scourge of wars, pandemics, and famines plagues the planet. Amidst the chaos, humanity cries out for help, and a one-world religion, empowered by supernatural signs and wonders, emerges and responds. Meanwhile, the beast of the book of Revelation, known as the Antichrist, emerges out of the revived Roman Empire to become the world's #1 political superhero. Then he divides the world into 10 regions and appoints 10 kings to set up a utopian society upon the earth. When it looks like things are getting better, 2 prophets preaching on the streets of Jerusalem predict that the worst is yet to come. The time has come to prepare your loved ones for the final prophecies, the prophecies in the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. Satan loses the great war in heaven. The masses marvel and worship the Antichrist. The Antichrist kills the 2 witnesses. The false prophet emerges. Christians are beheaded for refusing the mark of the beast. Jesus Christ returns in his second coming. This book reveals how the greatest story ever foretold ends. It explains how you can make a difference in these end times. Don't get left behind to face the final prophecies. Pick up your copy. So that's kind of where we're going in this next session. I actually feel like standing for a minute. So there's a lot going on in the second half. And it starts with the midpoint of the tribulation, where there's a whole bunch of stuff going on right there that sets the way for the second half. We've got a war in heaven when Satan gets cast to the earth, death and resurrection of the Antichrist, desolation of the harlot, death of the 2 witnesses, 7 trumpet sounds, third woe of judgment, the abomination of desolation, the false prophet, the image of the beast, and the infamous 666, and the persecution of the Jews all begins at the midpoint of the tribulation. So let's start there first. One of the first things I believe will happen in Revelation chapter 12, we're told a war broke out in heaven with Michael and his angels. They fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels, that would be Satan, and the fallen angels fought, but they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil, and Satan, who deceives the whole earth. He is cast out to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So Michael the archangel, who is the prince and protector of the Jewish people, he will win a war against Satan and cast him down to the earth. What's that war like? Is that thumb wrestling? We're talking about a major situation. In fact, the verse after that says, Revelation 12, 10 through 12 says, "The loud voice in heaven says, Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you having a great wrath, because he knows that his time is short." So Satan is going to be kicked out of heaven. Presently he can go to and fro between heaven and earth. He will no longer be able to go to and fro. He'll be sucked down to the earth, and he's going to be very upset. He's going to come down with all these fallen angels, and they're going to say, well, great. We just got kicked out of our abode. What are we going to do now? And Satan's going, don't worry, I got a plan B. Don't worry, I still got this, right? So plan B, Satan's going to say, well, it's going to kill all the Jews on the earth. We're going to prove God has a character flaw. He's a promise breaker. We're going to kill the chosen people, Genesis 13, and we're going to take their land, the promised land, so we can show that God's a promise breaker. And also what we're going to do is, part 2 of plan B, is we're going to strand Jesus Christ in heaven.
If we kill the Jews in the earth, the Savior gets stranded in heaven because he's not going to return until the Jews say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So in other words, we kill all the Jews, they can't say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, we still win, right? Even though we don't go back to heaven just yet, we still win. So he's going to try to kill all the Jews so Jesus cannot return. So his tail gets thrown down, a third of the stars of heaven get thrown down to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman, in Revelation 12, chapter 4, representing Israel. Then the woman fled into the wilderness from his persecution, that they should feed her there for 1,260 days. So the faithful Jewish remnant is going to come into severe persecution by the Antichrist. We'll get into that in a moment. And they're going to flee to the wilderness. They're going to go to southern Jordan. We find out that would be in the ancient Edom area, which is actually where Petra is right now. It's a tourist attraction. Rock fortress, which can protect them in exile. What is the inhabitants of the earth? For the devil knows his time is short, and short indeed, it's only 1,260 days. So one of the first things that happen when Satan comes down to the earth, he's got to go to his point man, his seed, the Antichrist, and he's got to resurrect him because he's received a mortal head wound. And it says here in Revelation 13, 2 through 4, and I saw one of its heads, referring to the Antichrist, as if it had been mortally wounded. And his deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshipped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like the beast, who is able to make war with him. So when this resurrection occurs, the world marvels. Like, wow, here's this political character who's resurrected from the dead, and who's able to make war with him now? Well, the Jesus says, "I am the resurrection," but the words used here is also the same words. So what some of us suspect is it's not a true resurrection; it's an altered DNA thing, sort of thing. Makes this guy change. It's sort of an altered characteristic or something like that. We don't know exactly how that's going to happen, but the world will think it's a true resurrection. Then what happens is the 10 kings desolate the harlot world religion, because now that the Antichrist is now on the scene, he wants to now become everything that's called, exalt himself above all that's called God. So we find out that the 10 kings who will be on the scene in the first part of the tribulation, says the 10 horns which you saw will be the 10 kings on the beast. These will hate the harlot and make her desolate and naked, eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to fulfill his purpose, to be of one mind and to give their kingdom to the beast. So they're going to get her out of the way. Now I've said she's part of the false covenant, so signatory number 2. 10 kings get rid of her, and they capture all of her wealth, and they put it into the Antichrist coffer, who's about to set up a cashless economy. So the 10 kings desolate the harlot, signatory number 1. Then the Antichrist is going to enter the temple. He's going to stop the sacrifices. And the Antichrist is then going to attempt the genocide of the Jews, signatory 2. So he's going to get rid of all competing religions. The harlot world religion, Judaism, which will be thriving at that time because they'll be doing temple worship. And then Zechariah says, and this is what Jesus warned about, when you see the abomination of desolation, flee. It shall come to pass in the land that 2/3 of the Jewish people in it shall be cut off and die, but 1/3 of faithful remnant shall be left. So this is when it gets really bad for the Jewish people. The Hitler campaign killed about 1/3 of the Jews. This is going to be 2/3 of the Jews. So the Antichrist embarks upon a Jerusalem tour now that he's resurrected from the dead. I'm going to skip ahead from this. That covenant that they thought they'd avoid the overflowing scourge, Isaiah tells us in 28:18, it will be annulled. That happens when the Antichrist goes into the temple on his Jerusalem tour, and your covenant with death and Sheol will not stand. The overflowing scourge will pass through, because the Antichrist is going to get rid of the 2 signatories and try to start killing the Jews, get rid of Israel and the harlot world religion. So day 1 in the Jerusalem tour of the Antichrist. The 2 witnesses, they have power to prevent rainfall, blood, strike the earth with all plagues, torment those unbelievers who dwell on the earth. Can't be killed. They will harm those who try to kill them. They successfully profess their testimonies, prophesy and preach Jesus, causing many Jews to recognize God. The beast who ascends out of the bottomless pit has got to deal with those individuals, because they're tormenting all the inhabitants of the earth who don't know who they are, don't believe in them. So the beast who ascends out of the bottomless pit in the resurrection will make war against them, overcome them, and kill them. Their dead bodies will lie dead in the great city of the great city, Jerusalem. So in other words, he arrives in Jerusalem. He's got his business to deal with. 10 kings desolated the harlot. Now he's got to go do what he's going to do in Jerusalem, day one. First thing he does, he jumps in his motorcade with all of his security guys. He goes to Jerusalem, and somehow he makes war with these guys and kills them, something that no one else was able to do for the first 3.5 years of the tribulation. The world's already marveling at this guy because he's resurrected from the dead. Who can make war with him? Then the people see their dead bodies 3.5 days. So they sit in the streets for 3.5 days dead. The TV cameras are on them. Not allowed their dead bodies to be put in the graves. And those who dwell on the earth will rejoice over them, make merry, and send gifts to one another, because these two prophets tormented those who dwell on the earth. I would suggest probably at this time the Antichrist says, look, I just killed these guys. The plagues are now over. Remember, the trumpet plagues have been happening. The 6 trumpets, the seal judgments have already happened. I don't know if that's what he's going to say, but I wouldn't be surprised. Guess what? I'm your hero. I just killed these 2 guys. No one else could do it. Only I can do it. And I just stopped the plagues. And they're given gifts. They're on TV. This is rejoicing for 3.5 days. Day one. So he goes back to his hotel room. He turns on the TV, and he couldn't be more full of himself. Well, look what the whole world loves me. Look at this. They're giving gifts. So on and so forth, right? But he's not done with his tour. Day 2, he's going to go into the temple. He's going to stop the sacrifices and offerings, but in the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to the sacrifice and offering, the middle week of the tribulation. So he's got more business to do. He wakes up the next day. He goes into the temple. He annuls the false covenant. The covenant of death will be annulled to Israel, and your agreement with Sheol will not stand. I just read that in Isaiah 28:18. This is the third clue. I'm going to skip this one. So day 2, he's still in the temple. The daily sacrifice is taken away, and the abomination of desolation is set up. There shall be 1,290 days. And some people believe that the abomination of desolation is when he sets up the image of the beast. I have some quotes on that, I think, coming up. So the image of the beast probably gets set up in the temple. He goes in, he desecrates the temple, sets up the abomination of desolation, stops the Jewish sacrifices and offerings. Day 2, he shall bring an end to the sacrifices and offerings. On the wing of abomination shall one who makes desolate. Therefore, when you see the abomination, Jesus said, when you see that specific act to the Jewish people, you see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place. Whoever reads, let him understand. It's not a suggestion, it's a command. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. They would flee to the mountains of southern Jordan. So this is day 2. Now, the question that comes up, so how do the Jews know to flee to the mountains at the midpoint of the tribulation, right? Are they going to see this happen and go, oh my God, we can't sacrifice anymore, he stopped it. We should maybe thumb through our Bible, maybe we'll find somewhere in the New Testament where Jesus said something good for us to do, right? No. They're going to know this in advance, probably because the 2 witnesses are out there saying, this is going to happen. And when this happens, if you don't do it beforehand, you need to flee immediately. So they're going to know that Jesus said, when you see this happen, flee. And they're going to go, oh, Jesus was correct. It did happen. We were doubting it. I think many of the Jews will actually take heed to the 2 witnesses and flee in advance and get over there. But people, he says, don't you pray that this doesn't happen in the winter or on the Sabbath or that you're not pregnant. In the winter, they have these bodies that overflow in Israel. You can't get through them. Sabbath public transportation is shut down, and a lot of Israelis rely on public transportation. And certainly you wouldn't want to be carrying a baby in your womb trying to flee for your life against the genocidal attempt of the Antichrist. So he's still in day 2. He's in the temple. He exalts himself and shows himself as God. He magnify himself above every god. He shall have no regard for the God of his fathers. He shall exalt himself above them all. The man of sin is revealed, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, and he sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. He's not just boasting here's my claims, I am God, exalt myself above all God. He's actually showing himself, and the Greek word is to display or exhibit or prove that I'm God. So he's going to do something in the temple that's going to actually evidence, he's going to prove and show himself as God. So day 2, he goes back to the hotel, turns on the TV cameras, because the TV cameras are going to follow him into the temple. You can imagine this, right? Catching all this. Our hero, look what he's doing now. He's stopping Judaism. He's setting up his image. He's back in his hotel room. He flips on the TV. The 2 dead witnesses are still down on the street, passing out gifts around the world. The world's marveling, oh, look, he just did. Now, he is our God, right? Day 2 of his Jerusalem tour. Day 3, he gets a call from 3 of the 10 kings who says, and I'm going to tell you what I think they say, okay, speculating. We're told that they're in cahoots with the Antichrist, and they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. They're all of one mindset with the beast. They submit their power and authority to the beast, the Antichrist. They will hate the harlot as the beast does and make her desolate. They will give their kingdoms to the beast, the Antichrist. But for some reason, 3 of them have a problem now. We're told that the 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from the kingdom, from another one shall arise. He shall be different from all the first ones, and he shall subdue 3 of these 10 kings. So I think what we might have here is that we were okay with your political program. We didn't like the harlot either. She was problematic for where we're going with this world. But you want us to worship you as God? You're calling yourself God? We got a problem with that. So now he's got a little bit of an issue on day 3. He gets a call from the 10 kings. This is a movie here. We're going through this, right? It may not happen this way. So he goes, well, I will have to deal with those guys. And he does deal with them. He subdues them eventually. But now we got to go to day 4. They're still been giving away gifts. They're marveling at this guy. He desecrated the temple. Day 4, he encounters a problem. Because now after 3.5 days, these 2 witnesses stood on their feet, and great fear fell on all those who saw them. Oh, we got a problem now. These guys are not really dead. They're standing on their feet. And they heard a loud voice from heaven saying, come up here. And they ascended to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies saw them. And the Antichrist is watching this on TV. Look what's going on TV. These guys are not dead anymore. The world's fearful. They're not giving away gifts anymore. He jumps in his motorcade again with the security guards. They drive out to the scene. He starts shooting bullets up at them. They try to kill him. And they're ascending up to heaven. The bullets are missing. Whatever that attempt is going to be. Now he's got a real problem. He had a problem the other day when the 10 kings started to, 3 of them were giving him an issue. When this happens, the 2 witnesses ascend. It says there was a great earthquake at that same hour, and 1/10 of the city fell. 7,000 people were killed, and the rest were afraid and gave glory to the God of heaven. So he's going back to his hotel room, getting ready to make his trip back to Rome or wherever that commercial Babylon is going to be. Some say it's Babylon, Iraq. Some say it's New York City, which I don't agree with that one. You'll see tonight why I don't. But he's going to go back to his headquarters, and he's had a lot of bad news. I don't know, all the 10 kings aren't with me anymore. 3 of them aren't. These 2 guys are not dead anymore. The world's not giving gifts. There's fear. There's a great earthquake. People are dying around in Jerusalem. 7,000 died. Didn't turn out exactly like the tour he had hoped for. So then he goes at the midpoint of the tribulation. We talked about the first 5 items up there, but now he's got to hook up with this hitchhiker called the false prophet, who sets up the image and the mark of the beast with the number of his name 666. So the false prophet, he performs great signs, and I know we're going to have a Q&A later, and someone's going to ask me if I think the Pope is the false prophet. So I'm going to wait to answer that question when that question comes up. He performs great signs to deceive those who are on the earth, so he has the ability to perform signs. He instructs people to make an image to the beast. He gives breath to the image, enables it to speak, and causes many as would not worship the image to be killed. He causes everyone to receive a mark on their right hand or forehead, and he makes it so no one can buy or sell unless they have the mark. So that's what he does in relationship to the beast, the image of the beast. The cast of society starts coming. Now, meanwhile, the 7 bowl judgments are going to start to happen as we get into the second half of the tribulation. And it says in Revelation 15, verse 1, I saw another angel in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them the wrath of God is complete. Now God is going to pour out all his wrath. The Antichrist has gone in there and done his dog and pony show in the temple. He thinks he's got it going down here. They're going to implement their caste society. And God's going to level the wrath of God upon them. And the very first trumpet, first bowl, is all who take the mark of the beast are going to see loathsome sores on the ones that are marked with the beast. So you imagine that. They stood in line, they're going to worship this guy. Who can make war with him? He killed the 2 witnesses. He's our guy. He's our hero. He's going to offer us a mark of the beast. I'll tell you that that's probably more than just a chip, which is a technology that exists already. But they're going to get loathsome sores. And the dermatologists are going to be really busy. Why did I get this? Was it a faulty chip? Was it a faulty vaccine inside the chip? Was it, they're going to realize it was a plague over time because it seems to stay with them throughout the whole second half of the tribulation. Second bowl, things go from bad to worse. The sea turns to blood and the sea life dies, Revelation 16:3. Then the third bowl, fresh waters start turning to blood. So far, so bad for this gaseous economy, right? Then the fourth bowl is scorching heat, and men still blaspheme and curse God, even after all these things that are going on. Then the fifth bowl, the beast's throne is struck, and the beast's kingdom goes dark. Now this is a big deal. So commercial Babylon goes dark. Now up to that point, in the cashless economy, even though these judgments are going on, they're probably going to have electricity existing, computers running, street lights shining, billboards bannering, house lamps are lighting, technologies are operating, internet information is flowing for those who have the mark of the beast. Other people will be fleeing for their lives. News videos are live streaming. They saw the 2 witnesses dead in the street. Artificial intelligence functioning, blockchain transactions are recording, cryptocurrencies are buying and selling, and the cashless global economy is functioning. All of a sudden it all goes dark. God shuts it off on the 5th bowl judgment. So that's going to freak everybody out. Now I believe that we find as the judgment in Revelation. So it says, the kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxuriously with the harlot will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of her. That's supposed to be Revelation 18. Sorry, that's why I was confused. So the kings of the earth are going to lament when they see the great city, commercial Babylon. In 1 hour, Revelation 18, 19, 10. Revelation 18, verses 9 and 10. In 1 hour, her judgment has come. It goes black. 1 hour, and the merchants of the earth will weep. Everyone will mourn over her, for no one buys her merchandise anymore. So in other words, the system gets shut down. The merchants of the earth are weeping in commercial Babylon situation, second half of the tribulation. Not that they don't have any more merchandise, but they can't transact. Right? They're weeping. In 1 hour, it all went up to smithereens. And the kingdom will become full of darkness. Now this darkness is a big deal. It's like resembling, it would appear to be resembling like the darkness that hit the plague, the 9th plague, in the Egyptian plagues. Now check this out. Imagine this darkness hitting on the whole commercial Babylon. System gets shut down. The merchants of the earth are weeping in 1 hour. And the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand, and that there may be darkness over Egypt, comparing to that darkness, which it may be felt. So Moses stretched out his hand, and there was a thick darkness in all of Egypt for 3 days. They did not see one another. They did not arise from his place for 3 days. So imagine this scenario. It's probably very similar. It'll be a darkness that can be felt. People will be under house arrest. They won't be able to get out. They'll be freaking out, right? They've got loathsome sores. They're freaking out. And now at some point the darkness will lift. So I want to talk about the cashless economy a little before I go back into the darkness lifting and the 6th bowl judgment. What do they do about it? Because even though the darkness will lift, they realize it could be the whole economy can be shut down again. They can get it up and running again, but it could be shut down again, right? But let's talk about the cashless global economy right now and look at some of the current technologies that seem to be in place. Now remember, when someone takes the mark of the beast as a preference here, they're not duped. They make a conscious choice to worship the Antichrist. We want to worship you. We want your mark. We think you're God. They don't have the wool pulled over their eyes and let's sneak a little chip inside of them. They actually make a choice. And the mark of the beast is a reward for them. Okay? So it says in Revelation 13:7, no one will buy or sell except those who have the mark or the name of the beast and the number of his name. So the International Monetary Fund published, this is a headline from Bitcoin. You can see that these headlines, a lot of them are right at the beginning and throughout the pandemic, the COVID-19, which is accelerating the technologies to this end times technology. The IMF publishes Cryptocurrency Explainers, say it could be the next step in the evolution of money. In July of 2020, MasterCard and Visa are making bold moves toward mass crypto adoption. The coronavirus is killing off cash. Tech firms see the opportunity they've been waiting for as shoppers and business recoil from paper money. Who's hurt when legal tender goes away? That was a political article. The coronavirus is killing off cash. Cash costs money to mint. It can be laundered. It can be hidden from taxing. It can carry viruses, right? So basically, fiat currencies are going to be given away for digital currencies. It's an amazing thing to think about. For all the centuries, fiat currencies existed, but now with the technologies we have, they're going to be giving way to digital currencies. This is an article, countries are developing a central bank digital currency. So the Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency. Came out around 2008, I believe it was. And it really started making a lot of money. It's like $29,000 right now for a Bitcoin, right? But the problem with the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and these other cryptocurrencies is the central banks can't monitor the flow of them. And so they want to get their hands on their own Bitcoin, if you will. They're going to make their own central bank, are developing these digital currencies. Some of them already, there's 87 countries that are already exploring this, which is up from 35 countries 2 years ago. UK, USA, Canada, Australia, European Union, China, South Korea, Japan, India, Pakistan, Russia, Mexico. 9 countries have already implemented these CBDCs, central banks, digital currencies. America's already got one they're ready to roll out. According to Fed Chairman Powell, he says the Fed report on crypto and central bank digital currency is ready. So what is a cryptocurrency? I read about this in the Final Prophecies book. Cryptocurrency is a digital currency in which encryption techniques are used to regulate the generation of units of currency and verify the transfer of funds, operate independently of a central bank. That's why they're concerned. Central banks want these. This means that it is decentralized and very problematic for central banks of the countries to control their own nation's money supply. China rolls out a pilot test of digital currencies in April of 2020. Sweden is testing its new central bank digital currency, 2020. This is 2 years back. Here's the IMF, International Monetary Fund, put this video out. We're going to play a video.
When we buy or sell things, the payment is usually processed by a bank or credit card company. Problem number 1. The companies often take a cut of the transaction. 2, we have to trust these companies to protect our sensitive data from hackers. 3, most international payments take a long time and are expensive. To solve these problems, we could use a special currency that is secure and based on the science of cryptography, which is a way of protecting information using mathematics. This special type of currency is called a cryptocurrency and only exists in computer networks. When you send someone this special currency, the money goes directly to them, removing the middleman. And at the same time, the transaction is broadcast to the entire network and recorded in a permanent way, which means it's almost impossible to fool the system. Costs of making payments are lower, transactions are faster, especially across countries, and even those people around the globe who don't have bank accounts can buy or sell goods and participate in the global economy. However, there are some risks. The transactions in most cryptocurrencies are anonymous. Some cryptocurrencies can even be untraceable. This can make it easier for the bad guys to make payments without being noticed. If you lose your password, you could lose all your money. At the moment, cryptocurrencies are highly volatile. They can't process large amounts of transactions quickly yet, and they're not even widely accepted. But if we can counter the risks, then this new technology, or some variation of it, can completely change the way we sell, buy, save, invest, and pay our bills. And who knows, this could be the next step in the evolution of money.
So that was about 2 years ago they put that out. And they've since that time really been adopting it on national levels. And if you're going to have, as she said, one of the things is that the transfer of funds and products and things globally can be done now through cryptocurrencies quicker, easier, less expensive. And in the global economy, that's a technology that will greatly facilitate the global economy. Now, cryptocurrencies operate in conjunction with blockchain technology, so you've got to understand what these things are too. Why blockchain could be your next form of ID as a world citizen. Blockchain does more than just facilitate cryptocurrencies. It can do a lot of things. It's an electronic technology. The Tech Republic article says ID is the key for accessing education, healthcare, voting, banking, housing, and other family benefits for citizens worldwide. Now, the Bank of Canada Financial Post article exploring digital currencies that would replace cash, track how people spend money. So with digital currencies, they can track your consumer behavior. And the article goes on to say we can monitor who's not paying their taxes. We can make sure we can find out what they're buying, how much they're making, so we can get the right income tax from them. Back in 19, the Swedes were already getting implants in their hands to replace cash and credit cards. So this technology is, now they said mass adoption of cryptocurrencies, a lot of people thought would be in 2030, but I would venture to say it's coming a lot quicker right now. The pandemic has accelerated the move in this direction. So what is a blockchain technology? It's an electronic monitoring system in which a record of transactions made in cryptocurrencies are maintained across several linked computers and network, not just one mainframe thing. This is a global network of computers can be part of this. The block represents digital information about a transaction such as the products, participant state, location, dollar amount. The chain is the public database where the block information gets stored. Block transaction chain storage. It's kind of like, digital dollars you don't fit into a leather wallet like you do your cash. So the blockchain is sort of like the old cash register, right? Record the transaction and store the money. But now that's being replaced by the blockchain technology. Now presently, as we meet here, there's been a World Economic Forum talking about many things taking place in Davos, but some of the headlines coming out of this World Economic Forum are a little bit alarming. Also, this came out before I show you some of those headlines about Davos. This just recently came out on May 17th. MasterCard launches a tech that lets you pay with your face or hand in stores. So the mark is on your hand or on your forehead, right? Face ID's already, Amazon's already been working with some of this stuff. Now this, MasterCard is already using this in Brazil, and they plan on rolling this out in America maybe later this year. So the Davos meeting, the World Health Organization has come out and said this is the headline: Global Pandemic Treaty includes a plan for mandatory universal digital passport and ID system. Digital ID, digital passport. Now what's interesting, the world, concerning pandemics in the future, learning a lesson from the COVID-19, the World Health Organization plans to finalize the treaty by 2024. So it's a worldwide treaty with 195 member states. It will aim to shift governing authority, which is now reserved to sovereign states, to the World Health Organization during a pandemic by legally binding member states to the World Health Organization's revised international health regulations. In other words, we're going to forego our rights nationally because of the crisis that could be coming at hand, and this treaty is going to try to be put in place with all these 194 members by 2024. What's alarming is in January of this year, the Biden administration, second paragraph below on the screen, submitted proposed amendments to the 2005 International Health Regulations, which bind all 194 UN member states, In contrast to our constitutional amendments that require 2/3 vote of our Senate, only a simple majority of the World Health Organization member states is required to bind us to whatever they say we need to do. Vaccines or digital IDs, and they want the digital ID because they want to know who's been vaccinated and who's not just to mention the cashless capabilities of cryptocurrencies. So that requires only 98 votes out of 194 members to tell you what you have to do with the next pandemic. As part of this plan, the World Health Organization has contracted the German-based Deutsche Telekom subsidiary T-Systems to develop a global vaccine passport system with plans to link every person on the planet to a QR code digital ID. They want to give everyone on the planet a digital ID. Vaccination certificates that are tamper-proof and digitally verifiable build trust. WHO is therefore supporting member states in building national and regional trust networks and verification technologies. So they believe it's the right thing to do. It builds trust, you know. So this is coming, folks. 2024 is the goal. I write about this in the final Prophecies, future benefits of the new electronic methods. These newer electronic methods of buying and selling are being formatted in a way that could facilitate not only a cashless society, but also offer global citizens with better access to education, travel, healthcare, vaccines, voting, banking, housing, and a host of other businesses and or family-related benefits. In other words, you won't need a passport, you won't need vaccine certificates, you won't need a driver's license. Everything about you can be put together through blockchain technology. Isn't that wonderful? Now that's not a bad technology, but in the wrong hands, it's a terrible technology and it's going to be in the wrong hands. So when the mark of the beast is offered at the midpoint of the tribulation, there's going to be a big decision for people to make. And some of these people will be hearing pros and cons. Don't take the mark of the beast take the mark of the beast because there's pros, right? So let's look at the pros and cons. Imagine you're in the shoes of one of these people at this time, ready to make this major decision. You either get involved and get these pros, or you experience the cons. Well, one advantage is you won't get beheaded. That's a pretty good advantage. If you don't take the mark, you're going to get beheaded. We're going to search you out. We can find you. We got digital IDs already established probably by this time. Remember when the Antichrist comes on the scene with the false prophet, at the midpoint of the trib, they're not going to sit around and have coffee and go, hey, we should start a cashless economy. You know, we should do something. Well, how can we do that? No, they're going to know what they're going to do. The central banks are going to have their digital currencies in operation, and they're going to flip a switch and it's all going to go into their coffer for their cashless economy. They're not going to they're not going to reinvent the wheel. So you won't get beheaded. You become a worshiper of the Antichrist. Well, some people would take pride in that. So for instance, I use the example, it's probably not a good example, but someone's born a Catholic, they say, I was born a Catholic, I'll always be a Catholic, I'll die a Catholic. It's sort of an honor badge for them, so to speak. Minor pro, but some people may actually think that way. You can buy as a consumer or sell as a merchant, otherwise you can't, not in his economy. You can obtain a personal world citizen digital ID that connects you to all the global services such as universal healthcare, universal basic income, global banking, world travel, public education, and more. There may be another thing too. I'll show you in a moment. There may be a supernatural component that offers them eternal life or immortality. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But here are some of the cons. These benefits only last for 3.5 years. Yeah. So you receive loathsome body sores and you get to drink of God's wrath. You lose your shot at salvation. Now, so once these people take the mark of the beast, they're guaranteed to go through the wrath of God, and they're unredeemable. That's why some of us think they're altering their DNA. The Antichrist probably has been altered his DNA. Some people say he may be a Nephilim, if you know what that is. But regardless, they don't get any grace or mercy. They've somehow rendered themselves unredeemable by taking this mark of the beast. They get to watch the Antichrist and the lake get cast in the lake of fire with the false prophet. Their hero gets cast in the lake of fire. They get to watch that because the people with the mark of the beast actually go on for 30 days. I'll show this in the Millennium Talk. They still exist on the earth after the second coming until the sheep and goat judgment, Gentile judgment. So they're going to watch the Antichrist get cast in the lake of fire. They're going to be judged at the white throne judgment after the millennium, and they're themselves going to be cast in the lake of fire at the end of the millennium. So I would say the cons definitely outweigh the pros, right? So hopefully some people will take those cons to heart. Maybe someone will point out my book and say, look, here's the pros and here's the cons. Is there a supernatural component to the mark of the beast? So maybe Satan's prodigy, the Antichrist, will turn to the big garden lie, turn around full circle. Perhaps the seed of the serpent will do more than echo Satan's sentiment that you will be like God, and up the ante and promise to show his worshippers how they can actually become like God. A shot at immortality, now that might be enough to sway someone off the fence to worship the Antichrist and take his mark, especially if something incorporated within the mark contained a supernatural component. Here's some headlines. So what if the Antichrist said this? I write this in the final prophecies before I get into the headlines. What if he said, in order to achieve a divine nature like me, because I'm exalted above all that's called God, you're worshiping and marveling, you must become more like me, which means you must undergo a human enhancement that upgrades your DNA to resemble mine. Oops, headlines. San Diego Tribune. Superpowers aren't just for superheroes anymore. You want some? Brain chips could give people superintelligence. Superhuman abilities at Melbourne University. Superhuman abilities could lurk under your skin. Insertable technology could launch a new type of human. This stuff's already going on. The future of humanity, futurism.com. Superpowers are within our reach. We stand at an unprecedented juncture in our history. It's not a question of if we'll develop superpowers, it's a question of when. Remember, there'll be signs and lying wonders, and false prophets deceiving people with signs. Supernatural is the natural, the paranormal is the new normal at that time. Everyone's been looking for the fountain of youth, right? Women get cosmetic surgeries. If this guy comes along and says, you can have superpowers, you can have eternal life, you just got to be like me, you can be like God like me. I'm not saying that's what his campaign's going to be, but this stuff is already taking place. The U.S. intelligence, the third headline below, Defense Intelligence warns that AI human hybrid soldiers from China. China's already trying to build super soldiers. They're working on artificial intelligence that they're trying to embed into their soldiers. So the Antichrist kingdom in the fifth bowl goes dark in 1 hour. The merchants of the earth are weeping. No, they can't transact. The darkness will lift. But the concern is now the one who can pull the plug on that and create darkness again, it's already proven that, which is God, could throw darkness on us again. So we can get the systems up and running again. We can start buying and selling again. Get the technologies going, but we gotta go take out the hacker. We gotta kill God. We gotta fight God. Now they're all in. They've already got the mark of the beast. There's no turning back for these guys. So Satan enlists in the sixfold judgment and the Antichrist and false prophet a few of Satan's top fallen angel friends that refer to as frog-like demon spirits. So the sixfold judgment, the great river Euphrates dries up, and the kings of the east deploy for Armageddon. In other words, we would say that would include the Asian countries, China. More than likely, we believe this is what's being said. It could include India, but it would include the Orient. They'd be coming across the Middle East, the dried up Euphrates. They're probably going to march up to meet up with the Antichrist to make war against God, to take out the hacker of their system. There's three frog-like demons that come out of the mouths of Satan, Antichrist, and the false prophet. So it's not Satan, Antichrist, and the false prophet. They actually are in cahoots with them. They're separate. These demons perform signs that encourage the other kings of the earth to gather their armies for Armageddon. So they're got signs and wonders. These are powerful individuals. They could have been three of Satan's top generals in the War of Heaven when they lost. I mean, we don't know who they are, but they can do signs and wonders. And somehow they convince the kings of the earth that they can win a war against God. Can you imagine that? They're convinced, so they march across the Euphrates, the kings of the east, and the other countries come together to try to kill God. So here's a quote from John MacArthur about what this, how do you make a war against God? You can't get back up into heaven. You've been cast down to the earth. How do you war against God? Well, here's what he suggests. Maybe this is a final act of rabid anti-Semitism to destroy the remaining Jews. Now remember, the Lord is going to hide some Jews, and we learned back in chapter 12. They're going to be protected and nourished for the second half of the tribulation. Maybe they're going to come and rout them out and massacre them all in hopes that God will tuck his tail and go away and hide and leave them alone. That's pretty interesting, right? So the theory would be they're gathering together at Armageddon, and they know that the Jews are at some point going to say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord," and Jesus is going to come down, and they're going to ambush him, right? How are they going to fight God? They're going to probably go after the Jews, try to kill them all, so that they can't have the Messiah return. I don't know what the thing is, but the problem is, remember, Psalm 2 is important because I think it applies at this point. It says, "Why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and his anointed, Jesus Christ, saying, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in heaven shall laugh." So when this is going on, they're deploying to get together in Armageddon. God is laughing in heaven. They're coming to destroy God. They're going to try to make war against God, and he's laughing in heaven. "The Lord shall hold them in derision. Then he shall speak to them in his wrath and distress them in his deep displeasure. Yet I will set my king, my Holy One, on the hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, you are my son, today I have begotten you." So they're going to try to stop Jesus from coming, and he's saying, no, I'm laughing at that. I'm going to send him there. He will come. And so what happens is they start marching across to meet at Armageddon. You have the seventh bowl judgment happen. It's a great earthquake. Hailstones, cities fall, islands flee, and mountains disappear. So this is happening after they've been convinced they can make war against God. They're going to go try to stop Jesus from returning. And I read about this in the final prophecies. As a result of the Lord's 1-2 punch combo, the greatest earthquake and largest hailstones ever, the Armageddonites have to go the distance now and finish the fight against God. This is because many of them no longer have a place to retreat, since some of the cities have been destroyed by the great earthquake. Adding to the stress is a daunting possibility that if their hometowns were toppled, their family and friends were probably buried underneath the rubble. That is, if they survived the hailstone assault themselves. Now, John Wolford, Bible prophecy expert, says these are 100-pound hailstones. So, islands are fleeing, mountains are toppling, families are being crushed in the rubble, and these guys are still marching forward. They're all in now. They got loathsome sores, mark of the beast. They're blaspheming God from scorching heat. But somehow they're convinced they got to win this war or else, right? And then you have the second coming of Jesus Christ and the great supper of God, because he's going to destroy them when he comes, whatever's left of them. Now I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and makes war. And I saw an angel in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying, to all the birds that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather together for the supper of the great God, that you may eat the flesh of kings, the flesh of captains, the flesh of mighty men, the flesh of horses, and those who sit on them, and the flesh of all people. So there's going to be a sacrificial meal as Jesus Christ wipes these guys out single-handedly. It says that I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him who sat on the horse and against his army. And the beast was captured, and him and the false prophet, who worked signs in the presence, these two were cast alive in the lake of fire, with brimstone. They'll be the first two inhabitants of the lake of fire. We'll get into that in the Millennium Prophecies. And the rest were killed with the sword which proceeded from the mouth of him who sat on the horse, and the birds were filled with the flesh. So that's their demise. So what I say to those people, as I started earlier in the first session, who are concerned about loved ones, family members, neighbors, that sort of thing, and who, their loved ones and family members that we've talked about are going to go through, if they get left behind and if they become a believer when it's not a popular choice, because it's deceptive and they could be martyred. They're going to go through 3 killing Christian martyrdom campaigns. Fifth saints, the fellow servants, and their brethren. And I've got them blocked off where I think those time periods happen. The point is, our loved ones have to get through all these things. That's how the brevity of the situation, how sobering it is. And if they can make it through, the good news is if they do get martyred, they will be with Jesus. They'll rest from their labors. They'll be tribulation saints, and they have a special role in the Messianic kingdom. I'll share that with you tonight, next session. But they have to get through all this. They got to dodge all this stuff going on, all these judgments, so they can be ushered into the Messianic kingdom as a sheep Gentile. The odds are not very good that that's going to happen, if they even make the right choice to accept Jesus Christ. Now, along the way, these guys that are going through the tribulation, there's some encouragements in the book of Revelation for them to cling to. See, we're going to be coming in a time, right now, like I said earlier, people don't know and they don't care about Bible prophecy, but there's going to come a time where after the rapture, everyone who becomes a believer is going to cling to Bible prophecy. They're going to want to know what's next, how they can navigate themselves through the treacherous times ahead of them. But right now, that's not the case. It's a small demographic that's interested in Bible prophecy. Matter of fact, you're all sitting in here right now. These chairs should be full with respects to the days in which we live. So we don't have a large interest in Bible prophecy at this point in time. But Revelation 7:9 encourages persecuted believers that they are not suffering alone in their struggles, but they are part of a great multitude which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, peoples, tongues, and standing before the throne and before the Lamb. Revelation 11:14 speaks directly to believers that somehow survived through the first two woes of the fifth and sixth trumpet judgments, that there's only one more woe to go, and that's going to come quickly. So it gives them comfort that the time is getting really short for them now for their suffering. Try to get through it. Revelation 12 prepares believers at the midpoint of the tribulation period, the arrival on earth of Satan and his defeated angelic troops. These believers are made aware that the devil has come down, having great wrath. He knows his time is short. So they're warned, beware. Beware this is going to happen in the midpoint of the trib. Revelation 13:9 commands believers to be patient and warns them not to seek revenge for what's happening to them. They advise that if anyone has an ear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and faith of the saints. He's warning them, be patient. This is martyrdom's coming. The age of grace is over. And this is the period they live in now. And on top of that, he says in Revelation 14, reinforces what was said previously in Revelation 13. This particular passage has a specific application to those refusing to receive the mark of the beast. The believers are told, here is the patience of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, they shall rest from their labors, and their works will follow them. So he's not saying you're going to survive. He's not making any false promises. He's saying, be patient. This is the patience of the saints. You will likely die, but you will rest from your labors. You'll be with me. And they'll fulfill a special role in the kingdom. We fast forward to the sixfold judgment. The believers are instructed, behold, I am coming as a thief in the night. Blessed is he who watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. So he's coming quickly. The world will see that as the thief in the night. So we say to the guy who's tired of beating, thinks he's done with this. He started thumping his children with the Bible. He's got his head bashed on the tree. They don't want to listen. They don't care. They don't want to hear. I say to them, get these two books, understand what's coming on, and put a letter inside of them. Use your own words, because when you're gone, they might find these books. And you could say something like, I'm not home, I'm in heaven, I wish you were here, but you didn't want to listen to me. I told you so. Read these books for further instructions about what you need to do next. I'm not saying that as a plug to sell the books. I'm just saying, we got to leave that Here to Eternity Centers most of that information is designed for those left behind. Let's pray, and then we're going to do some lunch. Did you want to come up? Okay. So, Lord, we thank you so much for this day and your prophetic word. We just pray that we are discerning and deciphering these things and disseminating this information appropriately and far and wide. We live in incredible times. It's a great time to be alive knowing what we know, but it's a fearful time for many who don't know what we know. We just pray that we could teach them and evangelize to them through what we do know. And that's why we're here, and that's why we're trying to learn and be instructed. We ask your blessings on the rest of this time together, and give us strength, give us the opportunities to walk into circumstances where we can witness to the lost, to our loved ones, skillfully and in love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.